Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. God, I started off really high there. I think I would have carried on, I would have passed out. Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Lots to talk about tonight. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has got his big transfer wish. This is interesting news coming out this afternoon. I read it on the Manchester Evening News. We'll be talking about that in a moment. Also, Bruno Fernandez talking about the issue with Paul Pogba. Wan-Bissaka talking about the best player, why he's so good, effectively. And there's a United player to talk about that. Plus, the transfer news in relation to Jude Bellingham and on Grealish, which I'll talk about in a moment. But let's start off with what the start of this show is going to be about. And we will be doing Ask Me Anything towards the end of the show, so you can ask me any of your questions. I'll answer them as long as they're legal. But let's start off with this big Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gets his transfer wish. So Manchester Evening News are talking this afternoon an article about Ed Woodward no longer being in charge of transfers, which is something that we've wanted for a very long time, and effectively gives full control to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which is a massive vindication for Solskjaer and is a very, very big thing, because in the modern game there aren't actually that many managers who have total control of transfers, and that is the situation that we have at Manchester United at the moment. Now, the story is that Ed Woodward, over the last few months, in fact, has gone from being in charge of recruitment to just being in charge of negotiating, which is two very, very different things. And as the Manchester Evening News was discussing, that this has come from United as well. The current situation is that United, when recruiting a player under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, there are masses and masses of statistics and recruitment and scouts, etc. This is all accumulated by the head of scouts and the head of coaching, which is Marcel Boot, who's the head of global scouting. They then meet with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Mike Phelan every 4 weeks to discuss potential targets, who are then targets that are then negotiated for by Judge and Woodward. So Woodward is not involved in these conversations about what players we should be going for, what players we should be getting. He is involved in the negotiation stage, so much so that last month, it was last month, when Jude Bellingham visited Carrington, Woodward was involved in that, as was Sir Alex Ferguson apparently, and other players, and I'm sure Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was there. But recruitment is being dealt with by the head of global scouting, who meets with Woodward, with Solskjaer and Phelan to discuss certain players, which we'll talk about in a moment. And they even mentioned that Mike Phelan was thinking, because there is a hole at United, there is our Director of Football void that apparently we're still looking at, and we've discussed it on this show for a very long time. There is a Director of Football void at Manchester United that they're humming and ahhing about what they're going to do with that. But, look, maybe it's PR, maybe it's Neil Ashton kicking in, I don't know. But they are very, very eager at Manchester United to move Ed Woodward away from being this person that is in charge of recruitment. Negotiating, that's Woodward and that's Matt Judge, but not in relation to recruitment. Woodward has been distanced from that, and that is the public message that's being put out there. Some interesting things around the transfer as well. They're basically saying that Manchester United are now looking at a 70% success rate when it comes to signing players. And what that means is, if you sign 4 players, then 3 of them have to succeed at the club. It's not we're going to sack you if it doesn't, although let's be honest, if transfers don't work out, it can be a factor in why you're going to get sacked, because it's money, and if the players haven't worked out, it probably means you've not done so well on the pitch. But a 70% success rate, which, to be honest, if you look at Solskjaer at the moment, with Dan James, Harry Maguire, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Bruno Fernandez, he would be exceeding that. Certainly 3 of those players have been fantastic. Also, they're saying that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not a big fan of second choices. He wants his first choices. So when these meetings take place in relation to players that they discuss, Solskjaer is very keen that they go for first choices. And they mentioned that Wan-Bissaka was the first choice right back. Remember I said a year ago I was told about Meunier, and United were looking at Meunier, but Wan-Bissaka at that stage, they didn't think they could get him from Palace. As soon as they thought he could, he became the priority. Harry Maguire apparently was always the priority at centre-back. And last summer, remember I said it was Meunier, Sancho and Fernandez? We didn't get any, but we did get Fernandez eventually. We upgraded to Wan-Bissaka for Meunier, and we couldn't get Sancho. Well, apparently we wanted Sancho last summer. This is what this article is saying. But we went for second choice Dan James because we needed a winger and we couldn't get Sancho. Hence why we're going back in for Sancho now. So Dan James was effectively a second choice signing, but Solskjaer doesn't really want to do that. And they're saying that Sancho is the one that they want, which is what we said a couple of nights ago. And it's between Grealish and Maddison, or it has been between Grealish and Maddison for the attacking midfielder that will come in. which we know is going to be Grealish. So very interesting news. I mean, it's a halfway house, I would say. I do want Manchester United to get a director of football. I think it's really important that we do. But I also think it's really important that Ed Woodward's not involved in transfer recruitment. And I think it's very intelligent of Manchester United to make this clear to fans, because I think for too long we have been like, Woodward's an idiot, Woodward doesn't know what he's doing about football. And, you know, that sounds a bit blunt, but it's true. And the reality is that I've always known at Manchester United, like you do, whether the manager's Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Louis van Gaal, above those people, who two of them have been sacked by Woodward, who's got the football knowledge at that club? We don't have a director of football. So the assumption has always been that beyond Mourinho, beyond Van Gaal, beyond Solskjaer, there's Ed Woodward there pulling the strings in relation to recruitment, global brand deals, the whole sacking managers. It's Woodward. Because above, let's say, Mourinho or Solskjaer, but certainly in Mourinho days, and Mourinho used to say this, above him, there is nobody who knows anything about football. So he's being told what to do by people who don't know football. There was no director of football there in Woodward's ear saying Mourinho doesn't know what he's doing. We shouldn't be buying that player. Who was when Mourinho was saying, I want to sell Martial, I want to sign Jerome Boateng. I mean, they're two bad decisions, and I'm glad that we didn't go ahead with them. But who was the people who said no? It could only be people like Ed Woodward and the people around him on the board, because we don't have the director of football to go, we shouldn't be doing that. Someone from scouting might have said it, but not with the authority of a Mourinho. It would have to be Woodward's decision. So we have, let's not pretend we haven't lived in this world where Woodward has been the face of transfers and recruitment. And it was very fair that that was the assumption. But this is very clever. This is very good. And it's a massive thing for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, no matter how long it lasts. And I think we do need a director of football, because I don't think in the modern day having a manager who's in charge of recruitment works that well. I still think if you look at Liverpool, you look at Man City, you do need that technical director. But I don't think you need Ed Woodward, whose background is banking, who isn't a football man, to be telling Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, well, I don't think you should be signing Bruno Fernandez. I quite like the look of Declan Rice. You know, that's not going to work. Ed Woodward's a businessman. Let's get the specialists in. And at the moment, while we haven't got the director of football, to me, it's big news, and it's big for Solskjaer that he is in charge of recruitment and has got the final say. I think that's very, very, very good news this evening. And it's very, very good news that, again, it's another win for Manchester United for me. I think at the moment, United are doing so many good things around the charity, around not furloughing staff, around results, around recruitment of Bruno Fernandez. I know it's a very short period of time and we've had a lot of years of bad things, but I think United seem to be getting on board with getting the fans on board behind, you know, the fans are on board behind the players and the manager, but we're starting to get on board with some of the things the club are doing. And that's very important because it's our club. And I'm very happy that at this moment in time, Ed Woodward is not in charge or having any say on recruitment. If Ed Woodward wants to do negotiating, look, I still think there's a lot to be improved on there, but I'm happy about that. I reckon Cristiano would come back for a season, says Mark Calder. Have a word with him then. Ollie taking charge with transfers, says Sancho Nazim. I think this is a real positive because you want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to get the players that he wants to get. I think he's learning on the job. I think we're all learning on the job. But for those joining us a little bit late, the situation with United now, as we understand it, is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sits down with the head of recruitment, Marcel Boot, head of global scouting, every 4 weeks with Mike Phelan, and they go through their targets. And that then they identify the target they want, and then they give that target to Woodward and Judge, who go out and negotiate that deal. That is the right process, and a director of football can only add to that. You don't want Ed Woodward involved in, I think we should buy this player, I think we should buy that player, because you want him to focus on the business side of things. So that's good. Some story coming out today about Jack Grealish. If you didn't watch the video I did with Robbie at lunchtime, very excited about this weekend, by the way. 24-hour live stream. Football fans for the NHS raising money for the NHS this Saturday from midday till midday on Sunday. Lots planned. Get involved. Really, really, really important. But whilst we were doing that video at lunchtime, this story came out from France, from a blue tick in France, saying that Manchester United are finalising a deal for Jack Grealish. This isn't true. I did a video last night about Jack Grealish, and what we're seeing here and what we'll see more of are people trying to jump on a deal to go, oh, look at me, I was right. I was right in mid-April when we sign him in September or August or July. And go, look, I said they were finalising a deal in April. Do you know how easy it would be for me to do a video, stop this video and say United have signed Jadon Sancho? And then when everyone rings me up or says, how do you know, I can't tell you, but I know he's signed. And Jadon Sancho could go on Instagram and say, that Goldbridge is full of shit, I've not signed anything. And I could still say, no, he can't, that's because he can't tell you. He has actually signed. Of course he's not bloody signed. What I'm doing is, I'm trying to jump ahead of everybody else and just say, I was right, I knew. And it's the same thing with Grealish. We haven't finalised the deal for Jack Grealish. We're not finalising a deal for Jack Grealish. We may well be in discussions, but until we know whether Villa are relegated, until we know if Pogba's leaving or not, until we know whether football's coming back, and until we know what's happening with Jadon Sancho, we ain't even going to be negotiating with Villa for Jack Grealish. So I think we might sign him, and I think that's probably where this story's coming from. I want to be first that I said we were going to sign him, but we're not there. Common sense shows we're not finalising a deal. Only an idiot would finalise a deal for Jack Grealish at the moment because he's not our priority signing. His price will fluctuate. If Villa stay up, his price will be 60 million. If his Villa go down, his price will be more 45 million. So why would you be finalising a deal now? It makes no sense. And we don't know what's happening with Pogba definitively yet. Josh Bowater says, it's great news Ollie is getting to choose his targets. Stevie Wonder could spot a better player than Ed Woodward. And Mark Holder says, what should we do with Dean Henderson? It's a good question on Dean Henderson. I do like Dean Henderson, but David De Gea is the first choice goalkeeper for me. But Dean Henderson needs to be playing Premier League football. You can't give them both Premier League football next season. So I think Dean Henderson, there's two options. I've said this before. You either sell him with a first buyback clause, or you get him on a long-term contract and you loan him out next season to a Premier League club. But yeah, you've got to you've got to look at that. In relation to Ed Woodward, look, I'm happy to give everybody a second chance, as long as they've not done something, horrifically illegal. And I think Ed Woodward's done a lot wrong at United, but there are aspects of what he's done that are right. And I think where I would applaud United, and I think they're doing a lot of things at the moment. And look, we're not on the bloody payroll for United. We don't get invited on MUTV or anything like that. We're a fan channel and we're allowed to say what we like. I do speak to people from Manchester United, but it's not like we've got a relationship. That can never happen. I've got no reason to say that I like the Glazers. I don't like the ownership of the Glazers. I've never liked it. I never will like it. I don't like it. And I think when you look at Newcastle potentially being bought by Saudi Arabian owners, these people have just got money that they're going to chuck at Newcastle. You could see Newcastle signing a Verratti. Everton have got a lot of money in there, like Robbie said as well. United need to splash the cash, because we're a big club on big club name only. We're like Arsenal. We were talking about this at the lunchtime. You can't just keep saying we're a big club, we've won the Premier League, look at our history, look at how big our fan base is. You don't win trophies off that. You have a fantastic club history, you have a fantastic club fan base, and you can pack your stadium out, but you don't win a title off that. You win a title off the lads on the pitch. And those lads are dictated to by how much the owners want to put into the club. And I think the Glazers don't put anywhere near enough in. And people were saying, oh, well, they've spent this. Well, we've got a lot more money than that. So I'm not a big fan of the Glazers, but there's a second chance there. And there's a second chance for Ed Woodward. And where I would applaud United over the last few weeks and months is stories like this today. I'm nothing to do with recruitment anymore. I'm just involved in negotiating. And some people would say, well, that's the same thing, but it's not. It isn't. You know what? It isn't the same. It's a bit like when my daughter's a bit older and she wants to get married, right? She comes to me and says, I'm marrying John. Can you pay for the wedding? I will. Okay, thank you. Hello, John. Let's sort the wedding out. I'm involved as a negotiator. I pay for it at the end. I'm not there with the daughter going to the nightclub saying, I don't like John, I like Henry. Oh no, I don't like Henry, I like Ricky. I'm not involved in that. That's recruitment. I leave the daughter to recruit, and then as the negotiator, I pay for the wedding. And that's what Ed Woodward's, that's what this story's about. Whereas for the last 6 years, I think Ed Woodward's been out with the manager going, nah, I don't like the look of that skirt, get that one. And I think that's that is the simplest way of saying this is the difference between negotiating and recruitment. Recruitment, you're out there saying, take him home or her. Negotiating, you're paying for the wedding. And I think maybe Woodward was in the disco and paying for the wedding, whereas now he's not in the disco, he's just paying for the wedding. And that's what you want at Manchester United. And that's what we've got now. So anybody who thinks, well, negotiating and recruitment are the same, they're not. They're not. And this is good news, and this is the sort of thing that Manchester United need to be putting out. So yeah, I'm happy about that. I'm happy about that. Rick, I'm not talking. My daughter's not marrying Ricky, by the way. He's a happily married man, and he's too old for my daughter. That's not what I was talking about. Anyway, I think if Ricky left his wife, he'd be parked up spying on Matic, wouldn't he, trying to get him? So yeah, there we go on that one. But interesting as well, Bruno Fernandez today. It is fantastic news. I think it's really good news. Smash a like on the video. I do. I think it's really good news. I think we need a director of football still, but I think it's really good news that Woodward's not involved in recruitment and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at this moment in time is, because that's what you want to see at Manchester United. Now, interestingly, we've seen with Bruno Fernandez talking today about the situation at Manchester United and speaking about Paul Pogba, and I quite liked what was said here. He basically said that, with Pogba, he's that good a player that people expect him to play like Ronaldo and Messi every week, and it's that's the issue with Paul Pogba. But he was saying it in a very nice way, because he's a very, very nice bloke, of course. But I think that what you're seeing with Bruno Fernandez there is the problem, and he's saying it in a very nice way. Stay home, stay safe, support United, says Mark Holder. Very true. But what you're seeing with Bruno Fernandez there is exactly the problem with Paul Pogba. Pogba does have the potential to be a Messi or Ronaldo in a midfielder. A watered down version. I mean, Messi and Ronaldo are elite. They're universal talents. They're not world class. They're universal class. But Paul Pogba should be the best midfielder in the world. He's definitely got the talent. I've always said that. I remember when we got hold of Paul Pogba, how excited I was. I've watched football for 30 years, and I've never really seen that many midfielders, apart from really Zidane and Gascoigne, who can pick the ball up in the centre circle with 8 players in front of them and beat the midfield line and then create space or go through themselves. Paul Pogba can do that. We don't see Pogba do that enough. We don't see Pogba dribble with the ball enough. He's very good at it. He can drive. He's one of the few midfielders in the world who can go past their midfielder, and then you're laughing, because if you think about it, if you're playing in a team and you're playing centre mid and you've got a midfielder in front of you, it's very rare for a midfielder to take you on. And if they do take you on and they get past you, they're running at the back four, but that back four is also dealing with Martial, Rashford and Dan James. So I'd like to see Pogba doing more of that, because he's a great talent. He can hit a 50-yard pass onto a pin. He can shoot. He can tackle. He can win the ball in the air. He's got the whole lot. And Bruno Fernandez is right. The reason Pogba gets criticised is because people expect him to be like Pogba, like Messi and Ronaldo every week. But he's not. And that's the problem, because he should be. I'm not saying he should be as good as Ronaldo and Messi, but Ronaldo and Messi, as we know, are ridiculously consistent. You wouldn't be surprised if you hear, oh, Messi scored a hat-trick for the 3rd time in a week. It's ridiculous levels of consistency. And that's what Pogba needs to do, because otherwise his whole career is going to be like this. I don't think people like that Pogba gets criticised, but most of the criticism comes from people who know he should be doing better on a consistent level. And there are haters out there. There are people with agendas out there. Of course there are, and let's not pretend that there aren't. But Bruno Fernandez has hit the nail on the head there, and it's a lot of what I've been saying and what you've been saying for the last couple of years. The reason Pogba gets criticised is because he's a talent above everybody else. The reason Pogba gets more criticism than a Rashford or a Lingard or anybody else is because he's a level above, and he should be the focal point of that team. And, sometimes he's swamped. Players will swamp him because they know he's the best player, but sometimes he'll have a bad game. So Bruno's right. And Bruno didn't say it in the way I've said it. Bruno was like, the expectations are a bit too much on him. I don't think they are. I think we should expect more from Pogba, and it's actually a compliment to Pogba that we expect so much from him. I think Ighalo could be signed for commercial reasons. I did a report on United's strategic management in 2019. They've opened up an office in Hong Kong and discussed targeting China as an emerging market, says Josh Bowwater. Yeah, but Ighalo's not Chinese, is he? I mean, is he popular in China? Would that be why we'd be looking at him? I don't know. Nico says that Pogba gets too much pressure. And we paid 90 million for him, says Kean Darcy. I mean, the money's not really it for me. We could have paid 50 million for him. We could have paid 150 million pound for him. I knew the talent we were getting. I think he can be better. But I tell you what, I'm very excited with Pogba, because what Pogba hasn't had in his 3 years is the right players around him. He's never had Martial and Rashford this good, because they're better than when he first came. He's never had a player of the quality of Bruno Fernandez around him, and he's never had the consistency of a Fred, Matic, McTominay behind him. So, and he's never had a back four like that either. And he might, Jadon Sancho. So Pogba is going to be surrounded by far better players. What will he do with that? Who will you take on free transfer, Willian or Pedro? Says Athith P. Neither. I don't see either of them being what United need. Pogba for me should leave, says Jonathan Gallagher. And there's always, look, I don't have a problem with anybody who says Pogba should leave. I've got no problem with that, because you might have seen enough. You might think he wants to go, which is probably fair. As I said, the situation with Paul Pogba, a year ago I was told United won't sell him. In December I was told United won't sell him, and I did these videos so they're there. And a month ago I was told United don't want to sell him. And a month ago Ole Gunnar Solskjaer also said you can expect to see him here next year. So Pogba's got a choice. Does he force a move that's not even there, or does he stay for a year? And I think he will stay. And I think hopefully we'll get the best out of him. Fabian says, are you not tired about talking about Pogba? He's not going to be here at the club next season. Well, who knows what's going to happen with regards to that. Interestingly, Aaron Wan-Bissaka was talking about something and said that since he's come to Manchester United, the player that gives him the most trouble in training is Marcus Rashford, and it's made his game even better. This is really important. We've spoken about this on the show for years. Quality players make players better. If you're at Liverpool and you're Mo Salah or Mane or Firmino and you're training against Van Dijk, you're going to be a better player, because when you play Bournemouth, you ain't playing against Van Dijk. It's a step down. Most of the teams, there's not going to have the quality of a Van Dijk or a Trent Alexander-Arnold or an Andy Robertson. So Liverpool have got a very good goalkeeper. So Liverpool have got a brilliant back four and they've got a brilliant front three. And they make each other better because they're training against each other every week. We're now starting to see this at United. It used to be Rashford against Phil Jones. Not going to say anything. It's now Rashford training against Wan-Bissaka. It's now Anthony Martial up against Harry Maguire. It's Dan James up against Brandon Williams or Luke Shaw. It's an informed Fred against the hungry McTominay. It's an informed Matic trying to track a brilliant new signing in Bruno Fernandez. This is what you want to hear. This is really important as well, actually, for Wan-Bissaka to say that Rashford's made him a better player. Well, Wan-Bissaka will make Rashford a better player, because I've not seen a player so good in one-on-one situations for a long time. So Rashford will benefit from that. But also, Rashford, for 2 or 3 months, was the best left winger in the world, I think, around December time. So he's going to make Wan-Bissaka even better. I mean, you just stick Wan-Bissaka and Rashford together twice a week to train with each other. They're just going to make each other go to that next level, which makes them better players. This is what we need. This is what we need. And Bruno will make our defenders better. And our midfielders being competitive and consistent will make it. And Pogba's going to come back into that as well. So this is what you want. And I think for too long, you thought about United training. You were thinking, whoa, how's Rashford getting any better being one-on-one against Ashley Young? How you need to train hard. And this goes back to the days of Gary Neville and Roy Keane and the stories from training. And the stories that would come out about Roy Keane is that he was as competitive and as big an arsehole in training as he was on the pitch. He hated to lose in training. He didn't hold out in training. He'd bollock everybody in training because he wanted to win in training. And that mentality was there with the Cantonars, with the Beckhams, with the Gary Nevilles, with the Ronaldos. They trained like they did on the pitch, and it made them better, and it made them tighter, and it brought a winning mentality. And this is what United need to get to. And this is where United, when I hear about Wan-Bissaka talking about that, about Rashford, this is where I think we're going to get to. Because for too long over the last 6 years, we've had mediocre players. And I think that's led to mediocre performances on the pitch. Now, we're getting players that are very good in lots of different positions, and that will make us train better as well. Pogba around good players, so true, Mark, says Mark Holder. Lingard was training again, Smalling and Jones and Rojo, says Karita Janga. Well, I wanted to come on to Lingard because Sky Sports are talking about Lingard, saying that he could face a difficult future at Manchester United. We're moving to that point where I'll start taking some of your questions now, actually. But what do you think about Jesse Lingard and his future at Manchester United? I think it's too easy and in some way disrespectful to say, well, very disrespectful to say his future's at Tesco's, on the checkout counter or anything like that. He's an England international. He played in a World Cup for England. He was called Messi Lingard for 6 weeks. It's been 2 years since that happened. I don't think Jesse Lingard's a first-team player for Manchester United if you want to win a title. I'll argue that with anybody. He's not a first-team player. He's shown no evidence of being a top 4 player for 18 months. So he's not a first-teamer. And where would you fit him in if you think he is? Hopefully Sancho's going to play on the right wing, but he's not a right winger. His position is an attacking midfielder, and he ain't nowhere near as good as Bruno. So he's not starting. Is he a bench player at Manchester United? And we're assuming, well, what does he offer from the bench? He doesn't score goals. He doesn't get assists. He's energetic. He runs around a lot, and that sounds very dismissive, but that can be important against teams where you need some energy from the bench. But does he get on the bench? Because if United's best team, and I'm not going to do defenders, but if United's team is a Fred, Pogba, Bruno midfield, then that means that McTominay's on the bench. And then that means that you're going to have maybe Dan James on the bench if we bring Jadon Sancho in, and Agallo as a striker. So then do you have Lingard then, but you need your defenders. So I don't... And if you sign a Grealish, he's got no chance. So it's debatable about whether Jesse Lingard even gets on the bench for Manchester United. And when you get to that point, I think the only conclusion can be this. Jesse Lingard played in a World Cup semi-final. Jesse Lingard is on quite a lot of money. Jesse Lingard is a high-profile footballer, whether we like it or not. He's well known. Can Jesse Lingard not be a bench player for Manchester United? I don't think he can. And at that point, I think Jesse Lingard and Manchester United need to have a very serious discussion and go, we can't get you on the bench. So, are you going to stay or are you going to go? And I think that's what you come to. I don't see him getting on the bench. I mean, he might get on the bench, but I don't think he should be getting on the bench. I don't. I think that there are players that are better who should be on the bench at the moment. And he can turn it around. Of course he can turn it around. And I'm not one of those players that don't want him to turn it around. I mean, I've never been a big fan of Matic, but I've loved what Matic has done over the last 6 weeks, and I'm all for giving people second chances. So, of course Lingard can turn it around. Do I think he's going to turn it around? No. Can you see Pogba as a number 10 and Bruno as a number 8? Says 123 Tommy. I think Pogba will play as a holding midfielder when he comes back, and I'll be very, very surprised if he didn't. Lingard would be good at like an Everton, says Sophie. Look, I would love Lingard to go to another Premier League club and do well. And I always want United players to do well, unless they're Tevez or Di Maria or someone like that, But most United players, even if they're not good enough, I would hope that they go and do well. And as Kepper says, is Jesse not our 4th choice attacking midfielder already? Well, Bruno, Mata, probably Lingard 3rd at the moment. So, I mean, I'd like Gomez to be given a chance. Of course I would. I think I prefer Lingard to Pereira, if that's what we're talking about. I'm not a big fan of Pereira, and I would say the same about Pereira. I mean, we should have said that. What do you do with Lingard and Pereira? Because I think they're both the same. They're the same issue. I don't think either of them are ever going to be good enough, and I don't think either of them actually are good enough for the bench. But they're both senior pros now. One of them's 27, one of them's 23, 24. So I think they both need to go. I would say, for me, a lot of people, and I think it's true, when they talk about Grealish, it depends what happens with Pogba. Well, I don't think that. I don't think it needs to be that. If you sell Lingard and Pereira, you bring Grealish in. He replaces those two players. That's what I think should happen. So I don't think Pogba. A lot of people think, why do you need Grealish if you've got Pogba? But let me paint this for you. You've got a midfield that has 3 starting positions, 2 holding midfielders and an attacking midfielder. So you need 6. McTominay, Matic, Fred, Pogba, Bruno, Grealish. 6. discard Lingard, Pereira, loan out Garner, Gomez. That's what I would do, if it's possible. Raiola will resurrect Lingard's career. He took Zlatan to Juve despite his worst season at Ajax. As much as Raiola is despised, he has strong contacts and uses them, which is why his players love him, says Joe and Dan. I hope he can. And I think you're very right there. I don't understand why Jesse Lingard would sign up with Mino Raiola, who's not liked by Manchester United, if his intention is to stay at Manchester United. He can only have done that to be looking at a move. And I don't blame Jesse for that. I think it's the right move for him, and I would wish him all the best. I think it's totally the right move, unless he can produce a miracle and turn it all around. Why can't Lingard play off the right? He played there for the few months he did well about a year ago. Maybe back up Sancho if he comes, says Larry Destolf. I don't know. I mean, Larry, you make a valid point there, but we haven't seen Lingard performing off the right for a long time. Bruno to become captain after more XP. Bruno will demand a lot more out of you than a Maguire. Maguire sets a good example, but is there enough grit, says Luke A. I don't see a development of Bruno Fernandez being made captain of Manchester United. I don't see that. I don't. I think Maguire's got that captaincy, and captaincy tends to stay with somebody for a long time, and I think Harry Maguire's going to be our centre-back for 4 or 5 years. So why would you strip Harry Maguire of the captaincy? Once you've got it, it's very hard to remove it if you do well. And I think Harry Maguire will do well. But I do think that Bruno Fernandez could end up being vice-captain. But I do think that Bruno Fernandez will be a captain anyway. Because you don't always need an armband. You want 4 or 5 people who are captains. And United always did have that. And also, let's not forget, Harry Maguire is the captain of the defence and the team. But Bruno Fernandez can be the orchestrator of the attack. And I think that's what we want to see. And I want to see Pogba step forward as well. I do. Favourite King Eric moment, says Mark Calder. Crystal Palace, probably. Flying into the stadium. No, seriously, probably the chip. You know, the one where he chipped it from the edge of the box. But one of my favourite games with Eric Cantona was when we played Wimbledon. And it was just... Vinnie Jones was playing for them as well. And they were proper trying to rough him up. And it was just like... Cantona was always the one who was quite, aggressive, and watching him play against the team that's trying to rough him up, it was just interesting. And he got clattered a few times as well. But Cantona was an enigma. It was fascinating to watch. Can Sancho be our marketable asset like Jesse, and we can sell Jesse, says Anish Joshi. I think United do need to move to that eventually. I mean, you having marketable assets in the modern game is frustrating to some people, but it's also important in the modern game. And if you look at Manchester United, if we became successful, we would be one of the most marketable clubs in the world. And it's a big if here. It's a massive if. But if you look at Liverpool and you look at Manchester United and you imagine Manchester United won a Champions League and won a Premier League, who's the more marketable club? We've got Pogba, hopefully Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, even people like Scott McTominay. They're marketable because they are. Liverpool are more professional and less marketable. They don't really have the personalities in that team that are marketable, if you know what I mean. United are very big on that. So if we're going to have marketable players, you want them players to be performers, because what we don't want are marketable players who are marketable but not good on the pitch, and we've seen that in recent years. Is Gillen Balague reliable? He did a video earlier saying Atletico Madrid pretty much have no money, could mean a chance to get Partey cheap, says Josh Bowater. Gillen Balague is ridiculed quite a lot because he got a lot of things wrong over the years. But he has got good connects in Spain. I don't know where I'd put Gillen Balague now. On a tier list, I know who my tier 1 sources are, and I talked to one of them, as you know. Gillen Balague for me, I don't know where I would position Gillen Balague now. Probably tier 3 until he I just think Gillen Balague sometimes goes off with opinion rather than credibility, reliability. But on Spanish football, he might be right. I don't know that Atletico Madrid are in financial problems, but as we saw at lunchtime with Robbie, Arsenal haven't got the money. And I don't know whether people understood what was said on the video at lunchtime, because it's very important. How can you ask your players to take a pay cut and then 3 months later go and sign somebody for £50 million? Think about it. You can't do that. You can do that, but it's going to create a massive issue. If you work for me and I say, I need you to take a pay cut because we're going through hard times. You all take a pay cut for 3 months and then I roll in with a Rolls Royce. I've just bought myself with this out of the profits. High fives. No one's going to give me a high five. I'm going to be left hanging. Well, my hands will be hanging. It might hang me by something else, my balls as well. So Arsenal have already asked their players to take a pay cut and I think they've said no. So their directors are taking a pay cut. That tells you everything you need to know about Arsenal. They can't have the money to go and buy players. United haven't had or asked their players to take a pay cut. So United are in a situation where I think we can spend money. Who's the best paid manager in European clubs, says Alpha. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. All right, ask me anything. Get your questions in. Let's go. It's the Ask Me Anything stage of the show. So obviously football related is nice and everything that's legal. But I don't know. We've had a weird night tonight, haven't we? I've been hung by my balls for buying a Rolls Royce. I've been in a disco picking my daughter's husband. The analogies are coming out my arse, quite frankly. Balague is a United hater and a pet lover, says Julian Lee. I can't say that word, although it made me laugh. Neil Ashton has been one of the best non-player signings recently. What the club has done from a media perspective since he's been fantastic, including of the timing of the Pogba interview. Thoughts, says Jowin Daniel. It's in the back of my head, but I don't think he's a genius. I mean, this is a guy who used to be right for the Sun. You know, genius and sports editor of the Sun don't really go hand in hand. But I think what he has done, and what I would have done, and what many of you would have done, and I don't know whether he should be credited it, by the way, it could be somebody else at United, but what they have done is Mr. Obvious or Mrs. Obvious. Engage with your fans and be honest. Create and do things that make the fans happy. The fans don't want to hear that Ed Woodward's involved in negotiations of transfers. Well, you're not. So let's get it out there that you're not. The fans want Bruno Fernandez. Let's get that deal done. You know, these are simple things. And also, maybe, finally, Manchester United are opening their ears up to the fans and listening to the ideas of the fans, whether that's the United stand or whoever. Because the fans are in the trenches. The fans aren't going anywhere. The fans will fight for this club. And the fans will look at, when you're in a bad situation, they'll look at solutions. You know, if you're in 8th in the league and you're playing crap, fans aren't just going to go, oh, I hope we win next week. They're going to go, he ain't good enough. We need him. Look at him at that club. This is what we should be doing. And you can learn a lot from that. And I think Manchester United are opening their ears. I do. I think the arrogance is changing. And I think they are actually starting to listen on various different things. And they're realising that, well, the fans have been talking about this. We sort of want to do it anyway. Let's put it out there that that's what we're doing anyway, and then they'll be happy. It's communication. It's good PR. If you could have scored any United goal, which one? Says Mark Holder. Oh, you know what I'm going to say. If you could pick one Manchester United goal that you would score, what would it be? Come on. He's the manager of our football club, and he's won it, and Solskjaer has won it. I mean, can you imagine? Imagine scoring that goal. I mean, the Sheringham one before it would have been good. The overhead kick for Rooney would have been good. But scoring the goal that wins the treble in the European Cup in the last minute, I'd still be celebrating now. I don't know how Ollie isn't running around all the time just going, yes. You know, how do you live with doing that? He scored the best goal ever. Unbelievable. Would you take finishing 5th or 6th and winning the Europa League, Mark? Yes, Matty Conway. But it would be more stressful to do that. I think... I always say it's nice to finish in the top 4 because it's done and you can relax in the final a little bit, but you want to win trophies. I'd rather win the Europa League and get in the Champions League that way than come 4th, because in 20 years time you can say we won the Europa League twice, but you're not going to say in 20 years time, well, we won the Europa League once and we finished 4th once. You know, trophies are more important. But do you think Solskjaer can bring United back to the glory days, says Man? We'll have to wait and see, mate. We'll have to wait and see. That's my honest answer. I hope. I think that this break from football and the period before the break where we were doing well, the signing of Bruno, has given us some positivity. There will still be some people who are Solskjaer out, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Seems a lot of good news surrounding the club at the moment. Do you think this could be the turning point for our club to return us to the top? Certainly hope so, says Julian Lee, which sort of follows on from the last comment. Yes, I do hope we can turn things around. Yes, I do hope it's a turning point. But ultimately, let me be blunt again, because there will be people who are Ollie out in the comments, and why wouldn't they be? Why should they change their mind? Ultimately, this team's got to deliver on the pitch. Let me play devil's advocate here. I don't like the fact that we play counter-attacking football. We're Manchester United. We should be far more expansive than that. What is our style of play? What is our philosophy? What is our formation? Are we going to go on the front foot? Are we going to try and create lots of chances? Are we going to play a bit more risk-taking football? Or are we going to go into next season, hitting better teams than us on the break? I don't want that to happen. So as much as I get positive, I then have my doubts. So what happens on the pitch will define what happens to our future, and that's the way it's always been. Did you play as a CDM, Mark? Says Eric Cantona. I did. I spent. My best years of my football career and most successful were between the age of 14 and 18. Before I was 14, I was like 6 foot at 13. So I used to play as a winger. I was a bit like Steve McManaman, that sort of style, because I was tall and gangly, but I was very skillful. So I played on the wing. And I was good, and I always thought I'd be a professional footballer, but I just didn't really have the self-belief, and I didn't really have people around me to tell me I could do it. So it's very difficult when you're lacking confidence and you haven't got somebody to build you up. You do doubt yourself. So that's why I never really made it. But I got to like 13 as a right winger, and I was very good, but I was like 6 foot, and I was a lot bigger than everybody else at 13. I never grew again. I was 6 foot at 13, 14, and I'm 6 foot now. So I could have been a winger, because you can be a winger at 6 foot. But everyone thought I was going to be like 6'3", 6'4", and they started playing me as a sweeper, because I've always been very good at reading the game. So they played me as a sweeper. Then I went into a CDM, and then you don't play as a winger for so long that you sort of forget that. And I liked playing in the middle. So yeah, I played as a sweeper, played CDM, box to box. Had a good engine. If you were a woman, which United player would you like to date? Says DJ Johnson. Oh, come on, DJ. I'm not falling for that. Basically, you're asking me if I was a man who found men attractive, which Manchester United player would I date? But I'm not a man, and I don't find men attractive. So I'm not going to pretend I'm a woman to pretend I do find men attractive when I don't. Who would I like to go out for a meal with and a chat at Manchester United? Which player? I'm a lot older than all of them, so I don't think... It's about who you think you're going to have a lot in common with. And Bruno. I think Bruno would be an interest. I think Juan Mata would be as well. I'm at that age now where I like a good conversation. A good, deep, meaningful, intelligent conversation. And I think Mata would be very good because he's older, like me, and he's had an amazing career, so he'd have a lot of great stories. So I think Mata would be very good, a very good conversation. Mata for me. Mark, your thoughts on Premier League clubs wanting June finish, says Stephen B. Harry. I'm all for it if we can do it. Has Bruno actually spoke about nearly signing for Spurs as he saw United being his dream move? Says Songwriter 95. I don't know. I think he did speak about nearly signing for Spurs before he signed for United. I seem to remember there was a story in November time where he said he was close to going to Manchester United, close to going to Spurs. But I think Pochettino sort of leaving sort of left the way open for us on that. Chuck us your questions then. Come on. Oh dear, Benson, you've absolutely exposed yourself here. So Benson Thomas says, Mark, the Manchester Evening News reported today that Woodward won't be a part of the transfer process anymore! ! Benson, we spent 20 minutes talking about that 40 minutes ago. You're obviously late, so we've discussed that unfortunately. But yeah, it's good news. Paul Robinson says, do you miss the police force? No. And who would you rather, Koulibaly or De Ligt? I would probably go for Koulibaly, says Stefan Paliag. Well, De Ligt is a lot younger, and Sully Aziz says, pint in Solihull when this is over. Mark, pint it anywhere, mate. Pint anywhere. As soon as this is over, we'll rearrange our Dublin United Stand meetup that we had to cancel. So, yeah, we're definitely up for that. Koulibaly or De Ligt? I probably would go Koulibaly, but there is a big age difference, and De Ligt could go and be the better player. Who do you think's the best CDM if Matic isn't going to do it at the moment? Well, I don't think Fred's a CDM. It's got to be McTominay. This is why I think we need a CDM, because I don't see a specialist CDM for United. I don't. I think Pogba can do it. I think Fred can do it. I think McTominay can do it. But I don't think we've got a specialist CDM. I'd love us to go for Thomas Partey, as we've said. Pranay says, we keep talking about transfers, but will we have a transfer window realistically? I think we will have one. I don't know who will be able to participate in it. I think what you're going to see is the people with money will benefit, and we might be one of the teams with money, and there will be a lot of clubs that need to sell, and it's sad. It's sad. It's not. I don't think it is exploitation. I think if your neighbour has fallen on hard times and they need to sell assets that they didn't want to sell, and you're okay, and you go next door and you say, I'll give you a fair price for that, but I'm not giving you a full price for that, and they'll go, yeah, I need the money. I can see that happening, but we might not be the club that benefits from that. Liverpool could, PSG, Man City, Chelsea. I think anybody who's got a bit of money could do quite well out of this transfer window, but morally they'll have to be careful, because you can't go overboard on it. You can't go overboard on it, but we'll see. Alex Ferguson says Verratti's the man we need to play for CDM. I like Verratti, but it's been Areola again. Football is, and that is what I want, says, I've had a crap week, feeling low with this isolation. Any chance of a titanium to perk up the spirits? Thanks for the great show during this time. I don't sing on demand, and I've got a bit of a sore throat, but you are titanium. You will get through it. They can shoot you down, but you won't fall. You're titanium, just like Wan-Bissaka. Hey, mate, look, I've got a Going for Goldbridge going up at 9 o'clock on the Mark Goldbridge channel. Give that a watch. I'm sure it'll help you out, because I do talk about this. I'm suffering from lockdown fatigue. That's the name of the show, actually. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to feel guilty. We're all playing our part, and it's a difficult part. It's not the most difficult part, because the most difficult part are the people who are saving lives and the NHS, which is why we're doing the 24-hour stream on Saturday. But it's difficult. It is difficult. This is very difficult. It's very tiring. You know, I sometimes I just don't know where I am. You know, like tiredness-wise, fatigue. I'm like, what am I? What am I doing? Like, what's my next week? I'm going to be here again in a week doing the same thing. And I know why I'm doing it, because we're doing it for the right reasons. But I'm like, when's the end of this? And I think if we just get told it's going to be another month and then things are going to get better, then we can get through it. But we do need, I think we are getting to that point where we do need a bit of an exit strategy, because it is hard. It's not impossible, but it is hard. And there's nothing wrong with feeling low, because that's a realisation that you're normal. And that you're human, and that you're in touch with your emotions. Jowan Daniel says the number of players we've played out of position in the last decade is astounding. Young, Valencia, Pogba, Mata, and the list goes on. I would say even Rooney lost his way because he played all over. Sir Alex was very good at that, but in the long term, does it help you out? Josh Bowerwater says crazy to think Mata was only just 22 when he won the World Cup with Spain. Could he be kept as a mentor to Gomez and similar players? I think, by the sounds of it, we already have done that with Mata. I don't think Mata's actually that good anymore. So the only reason we can be keeping him at the club is for his experience, I think. If we sign Sancho, Werner, Grealish and Milinkovic, or any other centre midfielder, and keep Pogba, do you think we're title-winning material? That's from Coach Ryan Roy. Mate, if we sign Sancho, Werner, Grealish and Milinkovic, and keep Pogba, it's never going to happen. Like, Sancho, Werner, Grealish and keep Pogba, I don't think will happen either, but that would be pretty amazing. We won't be signing a midfielder as well as Grealish and keeping Pogba. But if we bought Sancho, Werner and Grealish and kept Pogba, I still don't think we'd win the title next year. I think that's a bit fanciful. I think we'd be a lot better next season, but I don't think I don't think there's anything we can do to win the title next year. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that, unfortunately. Anyway, my throat's starting to go. I don't know why. I don't know what that's all about, but I'm starting to get a bit of a sore throat. Probably from talking. It's not the virus or anything like that. I don't want to go down that road, but yeah, it's getting a bit sore, so I'm just going to stop there. And literally in 10 minutes on my channel, Mark Goldbridge, Going for Goldbridge is going up. Another very, I don't know whether, I'll let you make your mind up about whether the story's funny or not. But check it out, Mark Goldbridge channel. It goes up at 9 o'clock. Thanks everyone for watching tonight. Really appreciate everybody who tunes into the 8 o'clock show. The 8 o'clock show is always my favourite show. I know we do the morning show and we do the 1 o'clocks, but I like the 8 o'clock show. It's the end of the day. The evenings are always good. You can get Netflix on and everything. So thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. And I will see you tomorrow. And remember, get it in your diaries. Midday on Saturday till midday on Sunday. 24-hour stream for the NHS. Loads planned. AFTV versus United Stand quiz on the night. Lots of other things going on as well. Lots of guests. Really excited for that. Something to do. Something positive for us all to do, actually, when we're stuck at home. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all